And then we got Seth Rollins versus Rey Mysterio, eye for an eye. Okay, so the common sort of defense I've seen of this match, and Ollie made this defense as well, which is 4 weeks they have told us you're going to see an eye come out of a man's head, right? They pretty much said that out on the table, and everyone said, I then went into this match with very low expectations. That's all fine and gravy. In another lifetime, I was a film critic. I was a freelance film critic, which means I got sent a lot of DVDs to review. Lots of low-budget horror movies in particular is what I got sent to review. It's basically what I bet my bread and butter was reviewing. Straight to DVD, horror movies made with 10 quid and a packet of M&Ms that has somehow found a distribution deal, and I'm now reviewing it. And a lot of them had some very, very creative ways around the issues, because when you're working with a low budget, you have to, do things now. You have to sort of sacrifice the quality in order to get somewhere else. But I always had the same criticism of a lot of these places. So like one of them that I got, I remember quite clearly, was a found footage movie that's basically set on the Lost World, Jurassic Park. So they sort of find themselves on this dinosaur island. There's dinosaurs everywhere, right? So it's a low budget found footage movie, which means they were using lots of CGI dinosaurs. But because it was a low-budget movie, the CGI was appalling. So bad. And it was, when I was watching, I was like, why did you bother? Like, if you can't do it, then don't do it. Yeah. Like, if you can't actualize the vision that you have in your head, then don't do it. Think of something else to do and wait until you have got the resources to be able to put that vision out there. And this is true of a lot of like low budget horror movies. They have these big grand ideas. They can't do it. So then what they make is a bit rubbish and it just looks a bit crap. And that's what happened here. WWE promised that they were going to have an eye fall out of a man's head. And they couldn't do it good. So what they did was they just did it rubbish. And it just looked, we've got it here to have a look at. There it is. That's the eye that came out of Rey Mysterio's head. It just looks rubbish. It looks fake. It just looks rubbish.
Well, this is the problem, isn't it? Because it's like you're doing it live on a night, and so you've decided to do it as an in-ring match. And I actually think the gimmick for the match added to what I was watching. Like, I really liked the way they worked together, and they worked around this idea of the eye being the really important thing. I think a lot of people have a lot of problems with like being grossed out by anything to do with their eye. Like I particularly am, like, that's why I can't wear contact lenses, but like, so I think it really did make sense here. It really did up the drama. And I was watching this genuinely thinking like, I don't know how they're going to do this finish, but I really like how they're getting there. And I think the story that was told through the match about the sort of the back and forth around how we have to end this match made a load of sense. They didn't do like a load of silly spots where everything that happened really felt like it was feeding into that narrative. And then, like you said, if you don't have the props ability to do this bit nicely, why didn't Rey and Seth just brawl to the back? Like, if you just brawled to the back of, like, so you brawled out of the ring and you brawled to the back of the performance center, right? You could cut there to a pre-recorded video package that, like, has already been shot and already been filmed that sets up the finish, and you film it in a way that makes it look like it's happening live, and you just cut to that and that plays. But that is something that you do that has a bit of, production value put into it. You can cut the shot away and you can set up making sure that the eye looks realistic in popping out of Rey's head. Like, you do all of that so that it does feel legit. Whereas at the end of this, it really did just go like, oh, he's holding a prop eye, is he? Excellent. Like, I mean, the same, I feel like it could have been achieved with just a blood capsule. Like, a better effect would, like, because it was cool when he took the little eye patch off and you were like, wow, he's got that misty eye, that looks really great. And then he gets pushed into the steps and you're like, okay, that's the one that's coming out. But then just like gushing blood from your eye socket, which you would imagine if your eye popped out, I imagine if something would happen. And even if I'm not a fancy doctor, but I just feel like I would believe that more than Seth doing that, he turns around to be like, cool, got to finish getting this eye out. And then walks off to be sick. And then you've got cut to that shot of Rey with a little golf ball in his hand, whatever it is. Like, you could, that ending, even if the whole match wasn't, the ending should have been cinematic, and it should have been pre-recorded, and it should have been filmed should have been filmed and edited and had all the post-production effects put on it until it looked real. Like, even just for a second looked real. Like, you don't have to dwell on the shot for ages, but just doing it live just made it so much harder to do that effect, because the only way to show an eye popping out of someone's head is with a close-up shot. And all these sorts of effects that aren't going to be imperfect, actually distance is the thing that makes them look better. You know, little bit, being a little bit further away just makes it a little bit easier to sell that story in. It's a shame, because I think it really did add to the match, the gimmick. And I don't mind how stupid and goofy it kind of is, really.
Yeah, it was. We said it on the show, kind of wish it was just an Extreme Rules match. That was just a sort of a hardcore brawl, because these two were working together so well and creating this incredible story. And actually the drama around the eye, as you say, was really good. Lots of eye-based action. You know, Seth with the had the pliers out there, the bit with the kendo stick, the snap the kendo stick in half. Yeah. There were lots of like really cool and inventive spots around a gimmick that sort of hampered them. And Louis Dangle
stuck it in the turnbuckle.
Yeah. Really cool. Oh, amazing stuff. And Louis Dangle said this on our morning meeting this morning, which I completely agree with. It's the same as the Randy Orton Edge match from Backlash. Those two had an excellent match, but it was not the greatest wrestling match of all time. Mm-hmm. But because WWE said this is the greatest wrestling match of all time, it didn't live up to expectations. And the same thing happened here. These two had a great match, which was hampered by a very stupid gimmick that they could never actually pull off. And we talked about this on the live stream yesterday. Friday the 13th Part 3 in 3D has a moment where Jason squeezes a guy's head and an eye pops out. I've got a picture of it here. Right, this film came out in 1983. I think it was probably a 10th, maybe even a 5th of the budget that WWE has for their weekly show. And I think Friday the 13th did it better in 1983.
Yeah, it's a shame, because I'm not in the band. Like, I'm not on the bandwagon of wishing this was just a regular Extreme Rules match. I like the eye for an eye booking. I like the fact that was like set up front that was going to happen. But you just shouldn't do it if you can't achieve it. And I think they could have achieved it. They just chose the wrong path to take the match. I like Seth giving, though. I did really like.
Yeah, it's because Seth about throwing up.
That little take when he makes the sort of he makes the noise of a little raptor, like.
Yes, Seth threw up because of what he did, and actually, I'm really hoping, because like Seth's selling of him tearing an eye from a person's eye socket was actually really great. He's the guy that did this and then threw up because of his actions. So I'm actually quite stoked to see his promo tonight, because you'd thought, based around that character work, that he's going to be like almost ashamed of what he did, and really sort of questioning himself about how far he has taken this Messiah gimmick. So I'm quite intrigued by that. The real downside to this, and what makes this all sort of a little bit like a bittersweet, and it wasn't even that sweet to begin with, because it looked silly, is that we then had a segment later on with I believe Charlie Caruso stood outside the medical office, where she said in so many words, Ray will be fine, he'll have his vision back. So actually none of it mattered at all.
They're just gonna thumb that back in.
Absolutely none of it mattered. Ray's just going to be fine, and there was a smaller eye underneath his eye. It's the being thrown off the roof thing, where you're like, you promised this big thing, you can't actually do it, and then the next day you go, and he's okay. It breeds a level of mistrust in the company.
Well, like Ollie said in the predictions, if you're going to have an eye popped out of your head, you should at least sell it for a few weeks, and they literally didn't even get to the end of the show without being like, Ray's going to be fine. And I get like, do you know what? That probably wasn't for us. That was probably for kids, in that sense of like, Ray is one of the most popular WWE wrestlers with the younger audience and has been forever. So I just think you need to be like, yeah, okay, he's he's going to be okay. Kids, don't freak out. Don't, we don't want to get letters of complaint. But yeah, it's kind of it's a shame because it detracts so much from the spectacle of, like, you've gone to this amount of effort. You've had a man throw up on TV. Again, something that we've had someone spit in someone else's face. We had someone throwing up fluids onto the floor. You can put up as much plexiglass as you want, WWE, but no one's buying that you're taking this seriously. Like, yeah, I don't know. It's a shame because it's a great match. And I do really think it added to it. Just the notion that someone was going to get their eye scooped out, but you just need to deliver on that. Tom Savini, for Christ's sake, use him. Like do it, and just don't do it live. Like, really hard to do special effects live. Pre-record that bit, man.
And the other bit of news from this as well is that Rey has been working without a WWE contract for quite some time now, and the story was that if he lost this match, it was kind of WWE's way of writing him off TV. So there's been no report yet whether he has re-signed with WWE or if this is going to be the end of Rey Mysterio in his WWE tenure. So that does remain to be seen. Up next,
it should have just been the way to write him off then, shouldn't it? He's lost the eye. He can't see anymore. He can't wrestle because he's got one eye. That's a brilliant way to get rid of Rey Mysterio. Oh, so dumb. Stop hedging your bets on everything. Oh,